Hello, America. I'm Brilyn Hollyhand, 16-year-old conservative commentator, founder, and editor-in-chief of the Truth Gazette. We're here today in our nation's capital of Washington, D.C., in the United States Capitol, with the one and only Alabama's newly elected United States Senator, Miss Katie Britt. Senator Britt, congratulations. Welcome to Washington.
Thank you so much, Brilyn. Thank you so much for having me and coming into the office. This is exciting. It's my very first sit-down interview.
We're excited. We're making history. There's a lot of history going on here. As you said, this is your first sit-down interview as a United States Senator. You got sworn in yesterday.
Yes.
We're excited to be there and watch that historic moment. But that's not the only history that's been made this week. When you were sworn in yesterday, you became the first woman to be elected to the United States Senate from the great state of Alabama. And you also became the youngest Republican woman in history to be elected to the United States Senate. Your Wikipedia page is just growing and growing with accomplishments here. Senator, you did it. You made it here to Capitol Hill today. After a hard-fought primary back home in Alabama, you deserve this. Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'll tell you, when you say senator, I want to look around and see who you're talking to. It still hasn't quite sunk in.
That's what I was going to talk about. I mean, we've got a lot we'll cover. But first, just how has it sunk in yet? A girl from the Wiregrass region of Bama.
Right.
You're here as a United States Senator.
As a United States Senator. And, we worked so hard over the last 2 years, 18 months, working to this point. But the truth is, the foundation for something like this is laid years in advance. And you think about being from, as you mentioned, the Wiregrass, and being a public school girl, and all of the things that you think you can and can accomplish. And this was not on the list. And it teaches you that if you keep your head down and you work hard, that in this country, there's nothing that you can't achieve. And I am hopeful. You mentioned being the first female and being the youngest Republican female ever, which is such an honor. I have said, though, on the campaign trail, I always wanted to make sure that I'm elected because I'm the right person for the job, and that I am the right person to fight for our conservative values, to fight for our people, to make both our state and our nation better. But it is not lost on me what it means to have that milestone, to achieve that for other young girls across the state of Alabama and the country, and if I can change what's possible for them, then it's certainly been a good day, because I feel like so often it is not the limitations the world places on us, but it's actually the ones that we place on ourselves that do the most damage. And so hopefully there is somebody out there who thinks that they can achieve more as a result of seeing me sworn in yesterday.
Absolutely, and I know there is. I was with you at reception yesterday, and I had people text me all day. Oh my gosh, I watched the story, and I'm so proud of her. She's motivating me. So you're already doing work.
Good. That's what we need to be doing, because we need everybody off the sidelines, all ages, all people, standing up to fight for this nation.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, you had a hard-fought primary in Alabama to get where you are today. When I was on the campaign trail, the thing I heard the most from voters, not totally on board with you, was that they were concerned that you would get to Washington, you'd become some typical DC bureaucrat and join the likes of someone like Mitt Romney, who wouldn't necessarily be the strongest conservative when voting on legislation. Senator Britt, what's your message today to those Alabama voters that represent up here in Washington that are concerned that you might be a Republican in name only?
Oh gosh, we are at a crossroads in this nation. When you look across our country, there are no shortage of issues that we have to tackle. And so we have to stand up and we have to stand firm for our conservative cause. I mean, you look at things like the border and the disaster that is occurring there, both with the number of people coming over, the fentanyl crisis that's occurred, and the humanitarian crisis, the women and children that are being raped and trafficked right here, on our soil. You look at all the different things with inflation. You look at the continual overspending. We all have to balance our budget at home. Our federal government should have to do that too. You look at that and what that means for the American dream, for you and for my children. And that is motivation enough. Yesterday, when I looked up in the Senate gallery and I saw my kids, it was a reminder of why we're doing this. And when my husband and I got in it, and I say to all the people watching, we didn't recognize the country. And we wanted to make sure that we fought to preserve the American dream, that we went and fought for our children to leave them with more freedoms and more opportunity than we had. And it's time for our generation to step up. And so we can continue to talk about different issues. I mean, you look at what's happening, not only with the spending, but I also think making sure that we're not just energy independent, but we're energy dominant.
Yes, absolutely.
Making sure that America is as strong as possible, that we achieve that strength through peace. And you were able to achieve peace through strength. So There's so many things that we need to tackle. Strong military, standing with our law enforcement officers, our courageous law enforcement officers. You look at crime and the streets all across this nation. It's a disgrace. You see moms and dads waking up and saying, this is not what we want. And so I look forward to being a voice for that and putting this nation back on track.
Absolutely. You mentioned the border.
Yes.
I think we've got some breaking news here, but President Biden has not been to the border yet.
No.
And next week, you will be going to the border in your first week as a United States Senator. Let's talk about that a little bit.
And that's because it's that important. We talked about it on the trail consistently, but you look at not only the number of people coming over, you look at what we just discussed with the fentanyl crisis. I mean, you know this, but it is not just affecting border towns or communities or states.
Mm-hmm.
Under President Biden, every state has become a border state.
Absolutely.
And so it's infiltrated, the fentanyl has infiltrated our communities and our schools. I mean, in our state of Alabama, we are seeing it far too often. Lives of children being taken through this fentanyl crisis. And so we have to get it under control. And then I look at what is happening to women and children and coming over the border and being abused, and we've got to put a stop to it. We have to. And so I'm going to go down there. I'm looking forward to it with Senator Blackburn and Senator Hyde-Smith. We're going to talk to Border Patrol agents, find out what they need, find out what's actually happening. If you want to solve problems, you have to listen. And so got to go straight to the root of the problem. You've got to listen, and then we've got to come up here and we've got to implement solutions. We cannot turn a blind eye. This is not occurring in a third world country problem. This is occurring here in the United States of America, and it's disgusting. And so as a United States Senator, this is a top priority for me, and I want the people to know that. So I will be there first thing. I will not have even been on the job a week before I go to the border. So maybe President Biden can take some notes on that one.
Hopefully, Ken. I wish you the best of luck with that. I can't wait to watch
Thank
that
you.
and hear about that. So you're already becoming a rising star within the party. You've been tapped by the RNC to serve on a newly formed Republican Advisory Council. That's awesome. Other members of this council include our mutual friend Kellyanne Conway and former Republican Senate nominee from Arizona, Blake Masters, another rising star, within the party. As we look at what went wrong and what went right in the 2022 midterms, and we gear up for 2024 for the presidential race there, what ideas do you plan to present to this advisory council?
Well, the first thing, this goes back to listening. So far too often we send people to DC and then they think they have all the answers. They don't. It's people on the ground. It is grassroots conservatives that know what this country needs. And so making sure that I'll be traveling all across the state. We've already reached out to so many people across Alabama, and started listening and started to say, what do you think we need? What do you think we need to do different? What do we do right? Because I believe there's no doubt that we are right on the issues. We've got to make sure that we effectively communicate that and that we build the coalitions we need to take us to victory. So here we are with a very narrow majority in the House. Obviously, unfortunately, in the Senate, we are in the minority, and then the Democrats have the White House. So we're going to be doing a lot of defense over the next 2 years. But we have to come up with what we're going to do, what we're going to stand for, and how we're going to accomplish those things when we take back control, because I believe we will in 2024. The House, the Senate, and the presidency. That's not just going to happen. We're going to have to formulate a plan. So anybody who's listening who has some ideas, please let us know. And we did that on our campaign. I mean, as you know, we traveled to every county in the state.
Several times.
Several times. And we listened and we learned a tremendous amount. I do think getting the younger generation involved is critical moving forward. You are such an inspiration to so many people, and we need more people like you who are engaged, who aren't going to just sit on the sideline, but are going to actually go and make things happen. And so getting your generation, getting my generation geared up and ready to make sure that we preserve this nation for the following generation will be part of the plan for sure.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yes.
While we're on the topic of 2024, I know it's early. President Trump, he's already announced his candidacy, though. Several of your Senate colleagues are also, teasing that potential presidential run. I interviewed, Ted Cruz a while back, and he's looking at a run. There's several other people that are now your colleagues in the Senate that are thinking about maybe running for office. I know you're not announcing your presidential run today, but do you have any favorites that you would like to see run in 2024?
Well, as a part of being on the RNC Advisory Council, I had to agree to stay neutral in the 2024 election. And so there are so many people who obviously have great ideas, which is what we'll be doing, is kind of figuring out where we need to move as far as a party. But I'll be working to make sure that the Republican Party is moving in the right direction and cheering on whoever that Republican nominee is, because it is imperative that during the primary process, we find the best person, and then we come together as a party and unite so that we can take the White House back.
Absolutely. Yes, we're looking forward to taking the White House
Yes.
back. When I first met you on the campaign trail, we were both backstage at President Trump's rally in Coleman, Alabama, in line to meet with him. And at the time, I think you were literally polling to like 5%.
Yeah,
you really
you may
had just
even
gotten
be
started.
nice right now. I think it may have been lower than that. So, yeah.
We're going to be generous today.
Okay, I appreciate
just
it.
weeks ago,
I
you won the
appreciate it.
state's general election in a landslide. You ran on what I like to call the Glenn Youngkin-like campaign strategy. You focused on each county individually, you traveled to them numerous times, and quite frankly, I think you ran one of the best ground games I've ever seen, ever. It was incredible. But you didn't get caught up in national politics. You didn't, get into this media sensationalism. You focused on real issues, real topics that matter to real local voters. What was the thought process behind this strategy, and why do you think it was so successful to getting you elected?
People counted us out from the very beginning from what you just said. I had an opponent polling 65%, depending on which poll you looked at, and me, I love that you gave me 5, but I think it may have been closer to 2. But we knew that it was time, as we discussed earlier, for our generation to step up.
Absolutely.
And to fight for our children. We knew what was at stake. We looked around the nation and every single thing was moving in the wrong direction. And so when you see that, and you know that you may be the first generation to leave your children with less freedom and less opportunity than you had, then it's time to say game on. And as my children reminded me when we wrestled with getting in this race, that God calls us to do hard things. And that's where we are as a country. And so I think bringing that passion, bringing that energy, the energy, the vision, the passion, and the will to do it a little bit differently, I think spoke to people.
Oh, yeah.
We also built unique coalitions. We talk about, people my age that maybe had not gotten off the sideline typically or not been engaged politically, trying to make sure that they understood what was important. And we talked to even the younger generation in between 40 and 18 and even younger, obviously, motivating them to motivate their parents and grandparents to understand what's at stake and why we needed to do this. And it's an exciting day for Alabama. We did, to your point, go old school. And it was people telling people. It was grassroots that got us here. And I will never forget that. And so we'll continue to listen to those people, continue to learn from those people. You look at our state, and we have a great state with great people. And we have a great story to tell.
Yes.
And to be a part, to have the honor to be a part of telling that story is truly remarkable. It's not something I take lightly, and so we'll take that same strategy that we had into the Senate, and we're going to outwork anybody and everybody. That'll be our goal.
Yes. So while we're on the topic of Glenn Youngkin, let's talk about education, and most importantly, parents' role in their child's education. Last year in Glenn Youngkin's race in Virginia, and school boards across the country, we've seen moms and dads standing up and voicing their concerns about indoctrination in our education systems. You and Wesley have 2 kids, 2 very bright kids at that. In fact, you're the only female Republican with school-age children in the United States Senate right now. As a mom, why is it so important to you that what should we do to get this indoctrination out of our school systems?
It's imperative that we go back. As you mentioned, I have said before, we want our children to be educated and not indoctrinated. We've got to get back to the basics. I believe, here I am, having grown up in the Wiregrass, a more rural part of the state, and public school kid, education is the pathway out of poverty. Education is the pathway to success. It's what unlocks opportunity for the next generation. It's what allows them to seize the American dream. And so right now, our priorities are out of whack. We need to get back to making sure that we are teaching children the fundamentals of math and of reading, teaching them history, teaching them life skills that will allow them to be successful, not indoctrinating them on gender and other things. That has no place in the classroom. And so we've got to stand up and we've got to speak loud. And we also have to make sure that we fight to encourage the federal government to get out of the way.
Yes.
And I say that really is what we need to do in probably every single situation, not just education, but making sure that those dollars follow the student and they do so in a way that allows that student to reach the American dream. So I know a lot of that is local and state, but when it comes to a national level, I look forward to being a voice and a force in protecting our children and their future.
Yes, absolutely. A few years ago, I was approached by a mutual friend of ours about you looking into running for this seat. So, of course, I did a little bit of research.
Did you?
And what stood out to me the most, besides your extremely accomplished resume, is while you were serving as president of the Alabama Business Council, you erased a $600,000 deficit from a $3.7 million budget in just 29 months in office.
Thank you.
Now, you're a United States Senator working for a government with a $31 trillion debt. Every Republican, they come to Washington, they claim that they're going to tackle the debts, but you actually have experience in tackling debts. So Senator Britt, what is your plan to tackle the United States growing debt?
Well, first off, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but we have a spending problem.
Yes.
Right? We don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. So making sure that we rein in spending and we balance our budget, we have tough conversations. We've got to get back to regular order. We've got to get back to doing things the way that they were intended. The way that the system is, quote, working now isn't working for the people. We're up here to make sure that we put as many of their dollars back in their pocket, because taxpayers know how to use their dollars better than the federal government does. So we've got to be a voice on that. And where we see wasteful spending, we've got to call it out, and we have to make sure that we create a plan that will allow us to move forward and not saddle our children's children with this debt. It's unreasonable, and it is a disaster, and it's something we're going to have to hit head on.
Yeah, if anybody can do it, I know you have the experience, the expertise to do it. I know Rand Paul has some good ideas.
He does. He has his 5.5 penny plan, and I think that that's a great one. Shaving that off every year until we get to a balanced budget. We're going to have to come together as a conference and say, this is our plan, this is what we want to do, and this is how we're going to move forward, and we're going to have to do it together.
Like I said, if anybody could do it, you could.
Thank
and
you.
I'm looking forward to actually
being
seeing you come to Washington
Absolutely.
and do something. Closing out here today, Senator Britt, as I mentioned at the beginning, you were the youngest elected female Republican senator in United States history. What advice do you have to give to my generation watching this interview today on why it's so important to get in politics at such an early age?
Yeah, well, first off, we need you. And I don't believe that you are the future. Brilyn, I believe you're the now. And you are a prime example for people that are watching of someone who had a vision and then had the work ethic and the tenacity to make that vision a reality. Everybody can do something. We said it earlier, about me saying that, the world places limitations on us, but it's the ones we place on ourselves that do the most damage. Remove those. My grandfather taught me when I was in high school. I went to him, and I was actually going to Alabama Girls State. And I was talking to him about some different political things, and he said, what are you going to run for? And I said, well, I'm not going to run for anything. And we kind of went back and forth. I said, well, so-and-so's going to be there, and so-and-so's, dad's a judge, and so-and-so's from here, and this and that. And he said, stop it. He said, I don't want to hear that from you again. And he said, none of that matters. He said, it's not what's in your bank account. It's not your zip code. It's not what your parents do that will determine your path in life. He said, Katie, it is your character, your integrity, your work ethic, and the way you treat people. And he said, I've got good news for you. You and only you control all 4 of those things. And so I would say control what you can control, and then get in the arena. When we look at this country, we have got to start educating people about the conservative cause. We've got to start educating them on issues, because as we discussed earlier, when you really talk about the issues, we win. And so I would encourage everybody to get educated on the issues and get in the game. This country hangs in the balance, and we need all of us to step up and fight to preserve the American dream for my kids. And yours.
Yes, I hope every young person watching today is inspired by that. You've definitely inspired a lot of people. Senator Britt, thank you for doing this. I really do appreciate it.
Oh gosh, I appreciate this more than you know, and I look forward to being able to do it again. And we're gonna go to the U.S. Senate, and I guess I'm here. I still can't quite believe that, but we're gonna fight hard to make sure that we put this country back on track.
Absolutely, congratulations! Thank you for granting us this distinct honor of the first sit down.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you for joining us. Really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.